colleagues who have worked in the financial sector for more than 30 years individually. That could be about 60, 70 if you add up all that. And we really do things related to corporate governance, supporting institutions, regularizing businesses. We also do a lot of work in microfinance, banking, generally financial services, where we try to make enterprises more productive and sustainable. So I'll not take a lot of time in that, but I will certainly share our contact. I'm currently speaking from Nyonyi Gardens, Kololo, where I have an office, but our main office is in Mbuya. So mastering financial records is very, very key, as we may go, we will get to know. And I want to take you through this presentation where we are going to touch the history of record keeping. Then we look at the basic. We also want to look at the aspects and characteristics of good records. Then we deep dive into common mistakes businesses do and how we can get ourselves out of that. So basically that is it. So here we go. I would like the thing to be as interactive as possible, and maybe one or two people can comment on the picture they are seeing. What do they perceive out of that picture? Belinda, you also have a right in your own way to comment or respond.
I am seeing,
I know some people are muted.
I'm seeing some beautiful art. Reminds me of, yeah, it's beautiful art from Egypt.
Okay.
Yes. Some carvings are on a wall. Egyptian art.
Thank you so Thank you so much. Anybody else who wants to give a shot? Okay. In the absence of somebody else, I want to say this is actually a record.
Okay, it's Egyptian holographic art. Yes, that's what people are saying in the chat. Egyptian art, yes, it is.
Okay. So these are basically records. And I want to bring to your attention that this is how far we have come in terms of making records. These records are dated about 5,000 years old. And they were made of clay and papyrus, and then they bit. So when we talk of record keeping, sometimes it can be a very tedious and painful, but also beautiful, as Belinda has mentioned. It can be beautiful, and this one has rightly been preserved. And as we said, this is dating back to 4000 BC, where the Sumerians were actually the originators of this. Later, of course, Egyptians also, after a millennium, they also got into this, and they were certainly using them for record keeping in terms of housing the military. But for the Assyrians who started, they were basically using it as a way of recording property ownership, and then, of course, commercial activity at that time. So record keeping is as old as that. And I think we have to get at peace to know that it's something we cannot run away from, because ours is even much easier and maybe it's now made very easy by the technology advances. So if you try to compare this from that Egyptian, then of course we have gone through manual. Record keeping is so confusing. When I asked Google, it brought me those records, and then it reminded me that music in itself is a record in terms of circumstances, whatever people recorded, and you keep on enjoying this. Of course, now, because of advancements of technology and IA, record keeping has even taken higher strides. So according to ISO, that's International Standards Organization, records are documents created, received, and maintained as evidence of information. It can be by an agency, government, person, and basically it is for mainly legal obligations, business transactions. The definitions further states that records have 4 defining characteristics. So for your record to be something which is very useful, it should be authentic in terms of content, in terms of context, but also structure. And this should be persistent, should be take a longer time, and consistent as well. It should also be very reliable. That basically stresses the trustworthiness of the record. It should be believed, it should be true to its word, and there should be no iota of doubt when you pull your record out. Again, related to that is the integrity itself. Records must be complete. That means whatever records we are generating, their completeness is very important. And these records should be tamper-proof. They shouldn't be just changed like that easily. And that brings us to the final characteristics of usability. We don't keep records for the sake of it. But once we have generated these records, we need to keep them where we can use them at a future date. It means we can easily locate them, we can retrieve, and then we can have them presented and even interpreted. These records will always be a basis for us to take action and the decisions. And all the records we are doing should really have all those. I know people have a tendency of keeping a record for the taxman and then a true record. All that is not fair and it's not even wise. That basically borders fraud. So I encourage all businessmen to be very authentic in whatever they do, have reliable records of high integrity, which can be used by everybody. Taxman can walk into your place and say, can you have your records? Okay, if you have any, I think our rules probably will note the questions and then we'll have a question and answer session. I don't know, Belinda, whether that is okay with you.
That is fine. We will have your presentation first and then we will have our questions answered later.
And I think you're also giving me 30 minutes. I think I've already cut 25, so I have 25, right?
No, let's just go through with the presentation. Don't worry about it. We are here until 10:30. So yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So record keeping is a tracking of history of personal organizational activity. And then, of course, go through generating them, storing. And these are basically formal records. So keeping records or units of preserved information, like we saw the first artwork as we started this. It can certainly be in document form, can be in photograph, can be recording, as we saw up there, recorded music, recorded photographs. And then, of course, a record can also refer to collection of items that is in history. Again, those things I've mentioned. And it typically used for official, can be for accounting, can be for business, or any other thing. But above all, example would be just staff records, where for complete, for purposes of having it complete, where you are starting from the time you hire an employee up to the time you monitor their performance, their payments, and then of course going into performance management, and then even the future, because the cycle of employees certainly is entrance and exit at a certain point. So everything must be kept very, very well for purposes of avoidance of any contention in the future date. So basics of record keeping, you need to know the purpose. What is the purpose of these reports? Determine the purpose of the record. You have to choose an appropriate method or plan. Record keeping is a very deliberate activity which must be planned. And then, of course, you have to select information to include. What should this record have? It depends, because we are doing a number of enterprises. It could be in farming, could be in livestock, could be a school, could be enterprise Uganda itself, or it can be a business where a trading company. It can even be a religious or a religious institution, or even a political institution. So what you enter in that record really depends on the relevance you have as an enterprise. So entering information for accounting, wherever you are entering such information, it must have very brief but very clear explanations for purposes of whoever stakeholder is interested in them, could be looking at the growth figures, could be the market analysis, market share, can also be a record just of customer satisfaction. And then for our purposes, again, we are looking at basically what is in there for the taxman. So use of the information to make decisions, but also judgment. So whatever records you are keeping should be able to support you in all those areas. So financial recording, if we narrow ourselves to that, certainly is a maintenance of history of one's activities. This history should be of financial dealings, again, by customer, by businesses where you are registering, from the source documents, which can be receipts, you are looking at journals, ledgers, up to the point of filing and safe custody. So record keeping is a primary stage. It's very, very important. Nobody should run a business and ignore record keeping, because from those records, that is the primary source of all the information and which will eventually be used for generating other reports. So that entails keeping a record of monetary business transactions, which will guide you have a correct picture of your business, your assets, your liabilities, how you are dealing with the revenue generation, expenses, profits, and therefore losses. And those things should be tracked closely for purposes of meeting time, because time is of essence. You are aware we have mandatory reporting lines or times when we are supposed to be reporting to the tax folder or filing our reports, but also to close your financial year. But it's a good practice, like banks do. Daily, you have to know your position. You can do it weekly, then aggregate it to monthly, quarterly, half yearly, and then yearly. Then, of course, depending on your strategy, you can now look at 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years. So that is very key. So additionally, it assists in maintaining control of expenses. Basically, we come into business to make money. So whatever money you make should not just pass in terms of being spent quite recklessly or without due consideration. So it's very key that you protect that money you are making. It shouldn't all go, because you'll not grow if everything is going out there. And also, this information is very important for tax purposes, as I mentioned, but also of any company's financial structure. This is basically emphasis why SMEs must keep their records. So essentially, a record must have, a business record must contain enough information, as I had already alluded earlier. And of course, the purpose must be very clear to give us understanding the relevance of the transactions. And then, of course, at the end of it all, we need to see our position in terms of the business incomes and expenses. So the minimum information that needs to be recorded is generally, just to recap, this is certainly, these records must have dates. In a court, normally they'll ask you when the date, amount, and all that information. The purpose is what can save an enterprise from making a major loss, in terms of if there is a legal dispute, in terms of if you have been overassessed by the taxman. Although that information is very key. For example, sale, purchase, the wages, the rental. As you are aware, there is this rental tax. And most times people try to hide. But of course, the laws are very clear in terms of that. Even when it comes to staff wages and salaries, it is very clear. NSSF initially was looking at employers who had more than 5 employees. But now I think even if you have 1. So all those things are very, very important that you consider in terms of your record keeping. And then, as I mentioned again, purpose of the transaction, and then of course the relationship between the transaction and the parties. Again, as you'll see ahead, there's a tendency of the owner and the business acting like they are one, but these are different legal entities. So that's why it's very important for us to have well-formalized businesses, where business is running as an ongoing concern and it is a legal person, and the person, the business, the proprietor is also an individual. So their financials should not be mixed. They should be separated at all times. So here are some of the rules for record keeping. You need to keep all your records. All the records must be kept from the starting point. One thing we are sure of, just like the scriptures tell us timing for everything, just like you have time for birth and time for death. The businesses also have that. Of course, I should be quick to say nobody forms a business to expect it to die. You expect to have it to generations ahead. But sometimes realities come in. Uganda certainly has been recorded as the most enterprising country where a lot of businesses started, but some of them don't see even the first birthday. The majority collapse within the 5th birthday. So the record of how you have started, how you have run, these changes, all of that is very key, because you can start your business, you run it. At a certain point, you just want to sell it for 2 reasons. Maybe you think your strategies have changed, your interests have changed. Maybe you think when you sell a business, it's a good business itself, you are going to get a very good return. At a certain point, it has to close, either again through your financial strategic decision that let me sell it off and close, or because of circumstances, can be foreclosure, can be anything else which will close a business. So at every stage, you need to keep records, because there are tax implications at every stage. When you are selling, the taxman should get its portion. When you are closing, all those things must be very, very clear. And of course, other affairs as well. So the relevant information must be recorded whenever it has changed. In the financial records, there's always a section where you are talking about the changes from the previous. And then, of course, you need to keep a record. Storage of records, the law requires that we keep these records. There are records you can keep for 5 years. There are those you can keep for 10. Others can even be more than. For example, if it's a record on maybe the land purchased and all that kind of thing, such records will be kept for a longer time. So you need to be able to show us all your records if you are asked. So those are some of the key things. The record must be available whenever it's required. So again, you're also looking at the principles of record keeping, where you say accountability is key. Whoever is preparing this report should be really accountable, should be knowing that whatever is being done about the report at a certain point, you can be put to the spotlight. And therefore, it's very important to have it done based on the characteristics I've mentioned. Integrity is there. Transparency, the record should be transparent in terms of the stakeholders. That's why we said you need to give as much information as possible. I've talked about integrity. Record protection is very key. We need to make sure that all our records are kept, whether they are electronic, whether they are analog or paper, they must be kept for a future day, because it's a compliance requirement. Also, when you're making these records, you must comply with the basics of report generation. As I mentioned, they'll be they should be accessible whenever required. You need to have a retention policy, even the disposal when you are disposing this. So these principles of good record management are reinforced by ISO 15487. And this is globally recognized. So everybody should know that this is what happens everywhere. I know we may be having a challenge as a country. We are not as advanced as others, but that doesn't give us any justification not to keep records. So we need to take record keeping very, very seriously. It could be the only savior between you and excess tax burden, or even a foreclosure. For example, if it's bank-related records, sometimes if you do not keep your records very well, you can make some losses. So just the components here, you have to have your identification of transactions and then recording of these journals. This is just to give you highlights, classification, nature of transaction, the postings in the ledger. The records must be balancing, and then the preparation of financial statements, which of course have to be interpreted, and then of course shared with other stakeholders. And then of course, all of these are very, very important in terms of decision making and strategies. And there are a lot of certainly stakeholders who will need these reports. So apart from that, of course, you are aware of these reports. They guide you on how you should run, determine your business. And then, of course, audit and inspection reports are very, very key. These are normally kept for a long time, and this should be made use of. Ahead, we are going to give you highlights of what could go wrong and the consequences of not keeping these records. So again, just like you have at the high reports, the manuals, they have these basic records. Business says about 30% of businesses which have collapsed have cited the poor liquidity management as a case. And in the ranking of the 20 challenges which cause business collapse, cash management is number 2. That is how serious it is. So we need to have that very clear. The other one is inventory. This must be kept whether you're in a school, whether you're in a hospital, whether you're in a trade business. Inventory surely sometimes hides a lot of cash. And of course, if you don't manage, there'll be loss, theft through our staff, or the damage. So you need to keep just what is enough. And of course, if you overstock them, they can go out, run out of date, out of fashion. So that is very key. The only way you can make sure that you don't get tied out there is to make sure that you have records on that. And then of course, accounts receivables, especially when you are paying, when you are selling not in cash terms, you have to have that record so that you collect them. And then of course, accounts payable as well. That is now where you have also probably got something out of credit. Those basic records must be taken care of. So having said that, the only way you can manage all that is to set up a record keeping system. And as a guide, these are the 5 steps you must have. Whatever kind of record you are, whatever kind of business you are in, you should be having a record keeping system. So you are required by law to keep the financial records, depending on the nature of the business. That guides you what records you need to keep. If you're a bank, if you're a trading company, if you're a consultancy, if you are a school, if you're a health center, all the records must be kept. In courts of law and all of that. So you are required by law to keep records. There are also a number of businesses. Business benefits will empound more on that gained through keeping accurate records. A few of them, of course, it saves you time and money. Sometimes we spend time trying to retrieve records. And that, of course, causes us a lot of trouble. If you do not file your reports on time, that is a penalty. So it is important that you have a good retrieval system so that you do your things timely. It will also help you keep an eye on your financial activities. Nothing is more embarrassing than failing to meet obligations of your suppliers just because you misplaced the invoices, you are not keeping an eye on the cash you have in the bank and all those kind of things. So when you look at the basic record keeping systems, you know what should be my record keeping system. Should include what should include. You should have the system in place, and then of course you must separate your business from your personal finances. Most times we mix the two. You pick cash from the shop, and then you go and buy a shirt or whatever. You give it maybe to people who have a social function. Certainly, we are social. Human beings are social. We'll have funerals, we'll have occasions, we'll have weddings, graduations. But try as much as possible to pick that money from your own pocket, not from the business. Unless you are treating it as I don't know whether it's corporate social responsibility or something like that. But whenever you pick money as an individual, you need to record it that you have now a liability on your own whatever, on your business. So make security a priority. We have talked about that. All your records must be secure. And then, of course, hard copies, soft copies, whatever must be done, can be backup. If I can expound on this, these backups are advisable it's advisable to keep them off-site, because if your business bans, even the records ban. So there are now companies which do off-site data replication. You have a primary site is where you are doing business, but you have a secondary site, which can be a company which will do that for you. You can take it away from the business. You could even keep it probably at home if you are not living in the business premises. But records are they should be kept securely. So again, just to run through in your records, I'm looking at cash sales must be taken care of, purchases, salary, cash book summaries, the ledgers, purchases, staff records, all those things must be taken care of in terms of the records. But again, as I said, it depends on enterprise, whether it's military, whether it is political, whether it is the legislature, executive. Everybody keeps their records which are relevant to them. So having said you get a system in place, you must spend time to set up this system and stick to it. Please allocate time, regular time, to make sure that your records are in place. Ordinarily, it should be daily, but you can have it weekly or monthly. So there should be, in your financial administration, record keeping must be taken very, very seriously. And then, of course, make it as a responsibility of a trusted employee. We have a tendency of giving the most lazy employee to keep records. Those with a bad attitude, they are not very interested in work. You say, let them do the paperwork. That paper, the record you have is as good as the money or the value of the business you have. So you should actually dedicate your best employee to take care of your records. And of course, again, it's advisable that you timely file these documents and you use a logical system where you can retrieve. It can be by date, it can be the nature of transaction, it can even be the volumes. And of course, it's good to be taking a materiality as well. There are those with very, very high value things like checks should be kept in safes. Number 3, when we talk about separating business from personal finances, the proprietor should know that these are two entities, very separate. So the way he benefits is being a wage earner. He should actually have himself in the payroll. I don't care whether it's a managing director or you are director finance or whatever, but you should be paid by the business, but you don't just keep drawing money from the business. The second, of course, is dividends. If you are trading well, and at the end of the year, you have some dividends to report. That is how you should be, that is what you should keep an eye on. I've had some institutions which, even when they are making losses, they pay themselves dividends. That is very suicidal, and it should not be encouraged. You should work hard and get a dividend other than drawing money from the institution. Whatever claims you get should be receipted and treated as expected, because some of them could be facilitating you to do the business. Yes, those should be reflected in the books, but if they are facilitating you to do something outside the business, surely those ones should not be taken as a business transactions. So that is very, very important. I think this is where most entrepreneurs get into challenge. But also when somebody has multiple, you have agriculture project here, then you have a consultancy here. Again, you should separate even those entities. They should have their own books. I know institutions now get a group which oversees all the three or all the other companies. But each company should have in its own right, its own records. And then, of course, the consolidation is done now strategically. But the consolidation should be derived from individual enterprises' records. So again, I talked about security. I'm emphasizing this because we've seen people in tears because of poor keeping of records. The fewer people involved in record keeping, the better, the fewer the errors. This should be specific to people who have been trained, oriented to do that, so that whatever they are doing it in the right way, and don't just make everybody's business. People go and make errors there. When you want to generate financial records, you're having a very hard start because the records are not reliable. So it's a good idea to have a password protection in your records. Malicious people can just mess up your records by deleting. You have been in institutions where somebody sees this job is tenure within the institution probably has soured out, so they maliciously delete the information. You need to keep an eye on that, the staff conduct and attitude. But also right now there is all this malware where people send malicious ware to your records. There is a ransomware where people send you, they mess up your records and say, send us $1 million. If you're a big company, you have nothing to do but to pay. So you need to make sure that it could even just be a virus or could be human error. So having all those protective interventions is very, very key. And then, of course, in storage, this was just emphasis on what I'd summarized, that you can have it stored even offsite. And then, of course, your premises should be fireproofed, or at least have alarm fire smoke detectors, so that you don't, your business you've struggled for years, it doesn't just melt into, fire. Of course, even insurance, when you're insuring your business, you have fair premiums when you are seen to be well organized in terms of your protection of the business. But if they come in and they find a business which is mixed up, it can become very hard for you to negotiate low premiums. So what is important again is certainly is to know that records can be paper, can be digital, and then of course you need to treat them as such. But again, we urge us to move with technology. Where technology has moved on, let's not be rigid and stick to the old, what we know. We of course know that technology comes with a cost. You'll be quoted a huge fee for hosting your records out there, or even automating your services. And most times you say, I've lived with it like this for long, so what is the hurry? It's very, very important that we move with the trends, because the business itself is supposed to be growing at all times. So having said that, I want to run you through the benefits of the financial record keeping, where you are saying that sound decisions can only be made when you have a genuine a report which is very dependable, which is accurate, which is authentic. You can be able to manage your liquidity, cash flows quite well when you have records. You don't want to be shocked. You have signed a check and it goes to the bank and it bounces. And some banks have made a very good revenue line out of bounced checks, just because you thought money is there, but because you're not doing good reconciliation, you are taken by surprise. So cash liquidity management is very key. You don't want to have a day of paying your salaries and there is even no money to pay salaries. You start getting excuses, and that's where staff starts stealing from you because they think you have delayed their pay. So it helps you demonstrate financial position. And most times, again, number two, if you poorly manage your liquidity, you'll be forced to go to lenders. And it can be so desperate that you run to money lenders who charge you up to 20%, 30% per month. Some even charge per week. So you should not go to the bank when you're in a crisis. Banks certainly are not that flexible. They'll not give you money in one day. I've gathered from the public that some banks will drag you for 3 months and they don't even give you a loan. So that will just compound your challenges. So I'm not here to decampaign money lenders, but try to manage yourself so that you are not in a crisis and you go and pick loans, which are very, very hard to service. Of course, it will help you position yourself to lenders, to other businesses. If you are a very strong business by record, by what people see, they can do good business with in terms of giving you supplies on credit. Professionals certainly will like to work with you as well. And then, of course, when you are selling this business, you'll get a very good return. So all that, they'll look at the record. They'll not just look at the business the way it is. You can have a very beautifully looking business, but when you deep dive in the books, things are just, you know, it's like life in somebody who is living on oxygen or intensive care. So it helps measure your performance. It also helps plan your work efficiently, generate meaningful reports. It will help you meet legal and tax requirements, protect your rights. The right protection here is with respect to tax. You know, you can only do a tax appeal or any legal challenge when you have a good record. You can, and you understand your rights very well. And whatever you did according to full knowledge of the laws and regulations. Without that, it can be very difficult. And of course, you manage all other potential risks associated with poor record keeping. And then, of course, you keep track of the money you owe, what is owed. And there is nothing satisfying than having a very peaceful mind because everything is flowing well. You are not on a liquidity stress. You are not being chased by your creditors. You're not being looked at. You are not being put on a agency notice by the taxman. A business should be running well that everybody in the family is actually smiling. Because if things are wrong here, it will go down to everybody. Even the dog at a certain point will get a beating because the business went wrong and everybody is in a bad mood. So this is now where we are talking about errors. We're about to conclude, and then you go to Q&A. The errors we do, sometimes we over-relax. We just say, let me take my holiday, let me rest, let me go to, you know, go and chill. Those are the words they use. And you have ignored all the issues to do with keeping your records, tax issues, and all those kind of things. Some people think they only keep records because of a tax man, but that is just one of the many. I've already outlined why you should keep records. So, the ignoring the records is one error. Failure to read and understand. There should be nobody who has high stakes in your business more than you. Therefore, you need to understand these records yourself. There are situations where the owners will say, I don't know anything about this business, so and so. That person has a bout of malaria, all the activities in the institution stop because all the records are with one person. So the owner should have at least basics. While you are not going to be an accountant, but you should have basic knowledge of finance for non-accounting managers so that you are having your business in your hands, not on an employee. The employee has his role, but for you, you need to have that. Sometimes human errors can be just interchanging omission, commission, the typos. But again, this can happen because as they say, human error, anybody can commit an error. I can do it myself. But there should be mechanisms of correcting that. What affects a lot of entrepreneurs, again, or business owners is procrastination. Where you say, well, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it another day, I'm taking a holiday. Things must be done timely, and the policy should support that. Sometimes it's just negligence, it's just apathy where you feel, you know, cared and all those kind of things. Sometimes people trust their memories, not knowing that business transactions must be recorded in paper, in a book, but not in your brain, because if by any chance God calls you home, or you go back to the Creator, you go with everything, and people have nothing to start, or nowhere to start from. Sometimes we just ignore account and bank reconciliation, which is very key. We need to take that seriously. Stock taking, reliance on manual system, incomplete documentation. It can even be just errors of misclassification of expenses, and then poor keeping of receipts, throwing them away. You have fuel in the car, and then the receipt, you don't even get it, or you throw it. Then you are telling the accountant, I took this kind of fuel. He needs a record. I've seen institutions getting a challenge with auditors, and they end up with the classified, they end up with the qualified reports, because there is no basis of all the transactions they have put in the books. And sometimes they just lump them as suspense in a suspense account. So if you don't break them down, an auditor will have no option but just to qualify your report. So all that is very important. And then, of course, failure to appropriately respond to business growth. You see a business is growing, but you are not even looking at the welfare of the business. You want to be there alone instead of bringing more employees. You think you can manage it. Instead of bringing automation, you think, no, you have survived with this. You want to be everything. You are holding keys to the safe. You are the extra keeper. You are, you must respond to the business growth, and then bring all the systems to support. Likewise, sometimes the business, for one reason, things may go wrong. If you cite what COVID brought on us. So if you have been in 4 stories or 4 floors of business, maybe it's time to cut back a bit as you get back to your footing. So poor business decisions and strategies, especially in terms of corporate governance, where the owner says all the authority is in his hands. That is why it's important to regularize businesses so that you bring boards, the board directors, the board of directors, which normally comes with additional skills. Some can come with audit, ICT, accounting, financial, business development, marketing, could even be just networking. All those are very important. So it's important to have a pool of board members who will help you run the institution in terms of oversight. If you leave it alone to yourself, your capacity might have been outgrown by business. You may have started as a small. I want to cite an example and the story were given by Maganjo Millers, where he started by selling roasted groundnuts and then flour, millet, but now he's processing. Certainly, if he didn't allow, he wasn't accommodative of those strategies of responding to growth, probably would have remained where he is. Sometimes we want to over-rely on family or cheap labor in experience because we are trying to control costs. That can be a very suicidal error. Not setting up systems, we talked about systems. Systems is what keeps things running. Even if the owner doesn't show up, the systems you set help. So you need to have them. For record management, I've talked about that. Failing to formalize business entities, we've talked about that. And then, of course, timely to find the returns. So how do we fix that? We're saying take personal initiative to learn and also train your staff. Don't let your business be run by other people. You need to take personal initiative. Read these reports, understand these reports, learn. Set systems, control policies, procedures, automate your accounting operations. There are now softwares, you have QuickBooks and others. It can be as basic as if you have been on a manual register. You can at least go to automated Excels and all those kind of things. So seek or employ professionals. You can be tax advisors, can be auditors, can be accountants, or even just managers. Sometimes we think that is a burden we don't want to take. But these are the people who will guide your business to grow. You cannot avoid the taxman, you cannot avoid the of course, accountant, auditors will also try to give you an independent view of how the business is being run. And then, of course, accountants will do their traditional role. So you need to do all of that. And of course, you need to invest in your staff, separate personal and business transactions. At all times, I've been mentioning that over and over and over and over again. It's very key. And then you have to carry regular snap checks. There was a story of a bank employee who used to hide checks. Those days of money operations, checks would take, they will tell you you have deposited a check, it will take probably a week. And those checks which would be taken up country for clearing or even abroad. So these guys would just hide all those checks. And then at the end of the day, by the time they realize, they opened the drawer and they found all the checks were hidden when the suppliers had been really chasing around for whatever, their cash. So at the end of the day, it became so bad that I think this customer, this staff even decided to end her own life, and not to mention the institution. And then, of course, you have to carry regular snap checks. I've mentioned, check the desks of your employees sometimes, make sure there is nothing outstanding. Of course, again, when you have a tracker, when you have automated all this, there'll be a flag of what you should be checking. You should be looking at a dashboard which is showing you critical things which must be checked daily, probably checked twice a day, checked weekly, like that, so that you don't get anything as a shock. And then, of course, you do performance reviews. How is the institution performing in terms of movement, cash, sales, purchases, and then, of course, even the performance of your own staff. So you need to adhere to regulations and policies. Recently, there was all these running battles of freeze. And when I was in Rwanda, I realized that even small kiosks have those receipts. Even all the buses had them. So I think it is something we need to adopt because you cannot run away from it. Whenever the government brings regulation, we're just supposed to be law-abiding. And then, of course, formalizing businesses, I'd already mentioned that, and improvement of all whatever you are doing. So basically, that is what I needed to share with you. I thank all of you for listening, and I can now take on some questions. I think I hand over you back to Belinda, but I thank everybody again for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Emaasit. Yes, it's like I've been in a class. I've been taking my own notes and also reviewing my business operations and transactions to see what I can fix. Thank you so much for your presentation. So this morning, I am thinking about the reason why we start businesses. We start businesses to solve the needs in our community, but then we also start businesses so that we can make some profit. We will never be able to know how much profit we are making from our businesses unless we keep records. And I think in the question and answer session, I will ask Emmanuel to give us a simple record keeping system for a beginner, for someone who is just starting their business. I think he'll be able to do that. Now, when we usually go out with Enterprise Uganda to do business health checks, we realize that most of the businesses that are just starting out do not keep any records, especially the money paid to their employees. So there is no record that you're even paying your staff their salaries. You could be buying your raw materials and paying your suppliers, but there is no record that you are paying your staff. And we've also had instances where some employees stand against their employer and actually claim that the business has not paid them. And before you know it, there are legal battles which actually affects the business. So record keeping is very important. One, to know how you are solving the needs in the community, how you are purchasing, your inputs, how you're making your payments, how you are being compliant. And most especially, we realize that when we keep our businesses, our records well, we are able to take that financial history and be able to get some financing from whichever financial institution. So yes, I have taken notes about us separating ourselves from the business, the importance of security to make sure that our information is protected, and the human errors. Yes, there are so many errors that could occur. I recall when I was doing my accounting module, there's what they call transposition errors, where instead of writing 756, you write 765. That is a serious error. But then Emmanuel has told us that as the errors are made, they can also be fixed. But that needs to have, you need to have an oversight on your transaction. He talked about automation, but above all, business people, it's the peace of mind. For us to know that we know what is happening in the business, for us to know that our employees are not robbing from us or stealing from us. Sorry, that's better English. Our employees are not stealing from us. And above all, to know that you're not going to have an agency notice on your business. Those are my major takeouts this morning. We will now take questions. We have about 30 minutes for Emmanuel to answer some questions. Let me see what is in the chat. Emmanuel, you have so much praise from people who absolutely love the presentation. It's been articulate. You are shaking tables, apparently. Presentation is reasonable and gives workable solutions. Let's see if someone has, if you have a question, please put up your hand. Moses Mugume wishes to know more about inventory. Okay, we're going to look at that shortly. Let's see if there are questions here. The presentation has been clear. Yes. Praises for the presentation. Praises for the presentation. Okay, so Emmanuel, as we wait for colleagues to put up their hands and ask questions, imagine that someone was starting a business today. They don't have the huge automation systems. They don't have the huge accounting systems, but they need to keep their records. Just draw for me a simple record keeping template for a business that is starting today at midday. Simply.
Okay. Thank you so much, Belinda, for those kind words and the feedback from the people who are with us in this presentation. I'm humbled, and going straight to your question. In a few words, when we are talking about the simplest record keeping system for anybody starting, from my presentation, I mentioned that the records start from the birth of the business, and of course, as it goes and grows. So when you are starting, the basic record can be as plain as a business plan, where you say, this is what I want to do. As a business, it really doesn't matter the size in terms of the wallet size. It's a big, you want to start big, you want to start small. Your business plan should show you exactly. It should be driven by what you have, what is in your wallet. And once you do that, that is the start of the record, the business plan itself. But for you now to jump into the business, you need to understand now, what do I need to keep me started? Certainly, there are those businesses where you start by yourself and you say, okay, given the nature of business, I can start as a sole proprietor. It has not grown very much. It's really a small start. You can start with a small office where you have yourself maybe a desk and a few other things, and then you just have a register. That register can be as basic as what have I started with. And when I was starting, what is that I bought? It can be the payment of rent. Therefore, you need to open a book to do with the rent. If you're a trader and there is stock or purchases you bought, you have to have a purchases record. And then, of course, daily as you sell, you have to have that sale record. And then, of course, the cash comes in as well. If it's in the bank, you also have to open that record. So you can have this as basic as something you do on a blue book. I don't have any here. So that you record those things. Everything as it comes day by day. At the end of the month, if you think there's anything technical, then you can say, okay, for me to be, for people to take me serious in this business, let me add another person. You may bring an administrator who can also be doing the issues of finance, because all this recording of transactions, remember we talked about the 4I principle, where you have two people, one checks what the other has done. If you have done it yourself, nobody will check it for you. As a family, depending on the family dynamics, but certainly it might be tricky for a spouse to check the other. Because, but of course, people can be that serious and they say business is business. I've initiated this. I'm going to check this. But I would advise you to have at least one employee. Even you call him administrator, call him a finance or a cashier or accountant or whatever, who will be doing that kind of basic record keeping. And then, of course, as a business grows, then you can opt for automation. That is now when you can afford just a simple computer to automate your records. But as a starting point, whatever you are doing must be recorded. And you need to bring somebody to help you. And then, of course, as I mentioned, whatever you are doing must be documented. Issues of cash, issues of staff. When you bring a staff, there must be evidence that you have taken through the process, maybe interview, keep their papers, and then issue a contract. When you have a contract, that is what will save you from this person going to the labor law and labor court and say you have changed the terms of employment when it was not even there. And of course, you'll be embarrassed when the person says you employed them by word of mouth. So you now need that administrator can be running as a finance person, administration itself, HR. Of course, all this grows and you widen it as you grow. And then, of course, that will also help you with the compliance. So in terms of starting basic, just make sure every transaction is recorded, all your books are checked, and you grow with that. Make sure whoever you bring into the business is brought in the right way in terms of documenting. The contract, of course, should show what they are earning and for what period, if it's probation, and all those kind of things. Most times we avoid giving people contracts because probably just we think, you are not very sure whether the business is going to last 1 month. But I think normally it is very key that all those terms are spelled out very clearly. I don't know whether I've tried to mention, but the system can be as basic as something handwritten, kept in a book. And then those records, as we say, the backbone of the financial record at the end of the year, when you are doing your end of year accounts or financial report, all starts from there. So I hope I've touched something related to your question. And then, of course, having a system also, basic policies and procedures. If you are doing this is how you must do it. If you are doing this is how you must do it. So that also helps you with compliance checks. Are you doing the right thing? Did you do it the way it was you expected to do? So that at the end of the day, you minimize errors as well, but also possible litigation. Somebody talked about inventory. Inventory, of course, can be taken as stocks. For trader, can also be, you can have inventory of If you are a technical, maybe a company, a garage, the spares. If you are a clinic, those are the drugs. If you are a farmer, those are pesticides and fertilizers. If you are a distributor, whatever you are distributing. So when you talk of inventory, you should have a documentation of how these things were ordered, what was delivered, what you have used, and you need to do stock taking. That stock taking should tally with what you brought in, what has been sold, and what you have in the store. If you don't keep records very well, you've seen situations where every day an employee lives, he lives with something. There's a story told of somebody working in a company, and every day he was a worker. Every day he rolls out a wheelbarrow with a few items in. Every day. So one time they asked him, hello, where exactly are you? And yet that is the way he was stealing wheelbarrows. He would roll a wheelbarrow like he's carrying some rubbish and comes back tomorrow, he goes with another. So that's how the only way you can save. I can assure you most malls or businesses which have collapsed in this country have been associated with theft, where a whole trailer of merchandise is recorded to have been brought. The paperwork is properly signed, it is received, acknowledged, stamped, but the goods never came to the store. So if you do not do those snap checks, so keep an eye on that, the trouble will be there for you. So again, get your trusted person to do snap checks of the inventory and recording daily. You have to come to terms with that. That's why I gave you a first picture, which was showing the pain of the first people who started us with records, where they were basically making them in clay and papyrus, then at the end of the day. So how painful must this have been? And for us now, surely you can do better. So I don't know again whether you've tried to answer that. But again, I'll give you my contacts, and there are some things we can even support you offline, because in our consultants, we have accountants, we have people who have various skills who could be able to help you. Thank you so much, Belinda. Back to you.
Yes, thank you. I picked a couple of insights from your response there, especially the importance of keeping records. I was told of a story of a gentleman who dragged one of his employees to the police for stealing packaging material. Yeah, they used to bottle water. So the employee used to steal the water bottles and sell them to someone else for a little bit of money. Now, when he got to the police, he was asked for proof that this person works for him, and he didn't have a record. Yeah, so I like that you mentioned that actually financial record keeping starts from the administrative part of the business. This person you're going to give a salary needs to be recorded as an item somewhere, that every month you're sending 1 million shillings to this employee, and then it helps with the other planning. Yes, so I really appreciate that. And on the issue of getting our records in and out, especially the inventory, I have learned that the inventory speaks to the business. It tells you which item is moving, which item do customers like, which item do they buy in which amount, which item is about to expire. I've had health institutions that buy drugs in huge amounts and they have to discard them because they did not look at the expiry date. And also when it comes to managing the inventory, as you record the inventory, you should also safeguard it, because that is like your money. So much to learn from just that one response. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. We'll get to the questions in the chat. Right now, I would like to ask Julianne. Let me get to Julianne. Her hand has been up for a while. Okay, Julianne.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good
I
morning,
hope
Julian.
Good morning.
yes. I would like to appreciate our presenter. Thank you very much for sharing those wonderful pieces of advice to us as startup entrepreneurs. My question is, of course, as we're discussing financial record management, I mean bookkeeping and records, I have a little bit of a concern, and I'm sharing from a personal view. We happen to have a family business that is run by one of us. However, we have one person who is fully on ground, and that person, unfortunately, does not have a background in accounting or bookkeeping or entrepreneurship, anything. She studied something completely different from. However, she's the person that is currently running the restaurant business. So we realize that she is challenged, and yet none of us, the rest of us, are not physically present to try and help out. It is a small business, but I realize that probably she is overwhelmed by trying to manage the everyday operations, the staffing, the customers, the suppliers, etc. I'm just wondering, how can we be of help to try and interest her, or maybe even, because at the moment we are not in position to hire a professional person to handle that aspect of the business, because it is just a startup. So how can we be in position to, of course, change and do otherwise, bearing in mind that this person has no background, and probably also they are overwhelmed with work, and so the record keeping is something that is really, really lacking in that business. Yes, I'm seeking the technical advice of Mr. Emmanuel.
Great. Thank you, Rachel, for your question, and very sorry about what is happening at the business. Emmanuel, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I think I would prefer taking them as they come so that they don't pile up and I fail to answer some. So Julie, again, as Belinda has mentioned, sorry about what you are going through, but I want us to reflect on one thing. And I think this is a big mistake everybody makes. I want to guess that a family business, probably all of you have put resources together. And if I'm not wrong, even your next salary is part of it, you are going to put it in the business. So what will it profit you people getting your hard-earned money and dropping it in a business which you have entrusted somebody who has limited skills to run? From the start, probably that is the kind of person you needed. And then, of course, it was matching our abilities. But, you know, I talked about growth. You need to respond to growth. Whenever you feel that there is an overstretch, you are getting stretched, that is an indicator that you need to get another pair of hands or another set of skills. So what you could quickly do is, one, again, with a background that competence or attitude, sorry, the word is attitude, because competence is mixing skill and attitude. This person could be having a very, very good attitude. Unfortunately, is not endowed by skills required to run the business. So with such a person, again, they say, I would rather hire somebody with a good attitude whom I can mold into what I need them to do. So what you could do quickly with that lady is try to very politely introduce the possibility of her trying to learn a few things if she's trainable anyway. But if she's not, then I want to suggest that what you could do is introduce the system of report records, where you can say at least every day she needs to record how much she has used to buy if she's the one buying. And then, of course, you can also talk to the suppliers and have a kind of a simple contract that every week, if you are supplying eggs, maybe we need 3 trays, so that you know, and we are going to pay weekly, so that they know that after a week, daily they supply this number of eggs. For a week, it is this, and this is the unit cost, and this is the figure. So you introduce that kind of organized purchases, so that now it comes to you. If I assume you are working from 8 to 5, but if the business is not far, you can also sacrifice in the evenings, if it's within the location you are in, to go and help us summarize the books of the day. You can actually do it as if you are many, you can have a schedule for yourselves where you say on such and such a day, so and so should be able to go and help. Then over the weekend or Sunday after church, I know, of course, there are people who don't, when you say Sabbath, the Sabbath is as it is in Israel, only police and the medical who work, and the army, of course. Everybody else, it is a family day. So for us here, again, looking at the scriptures which say, if your horse falls in water, in a pit, won't you rescue it? You could probably, after the service or whatever, or after Friday after the mosque, whichever day, you can go and sit down and try to upgrade the records. You can actually go and write. But for you not to have a clock, this person should be trained at least to register the sales of the day, the purchases of the day, who brought what, all those kind of things. I thought that is what you can do in the meantime. But if the business has genuinely grown and responded, I would urge you to add an additional person who has those skills. So you can either train that person or get another person with those skills. But also, you the owners can also get extra that residual time you have to go and help out. Otherwise, it is meaningless for you to save money, invest, where it can just disappear. I don't know, Juliet, whether that gives you some whatever, but it's really good to have a business. If the person has attitude, that lady seems to have a good attitude, she has integrity, what else do you want? Other than taking a skilled person who will swindle your business, before you know it, it has closed. So just positively nurture that person and give a hand yourself, or bring another person, even if it's part-time. You can call somebody to come maybe in the morning and in the afternoon. It's not full-time, they only come and do something specific. Then that person concentrates on the core business of making sure the food is ready, the food is nice, it is nicely served, and customers are happy. And of course, the hygiene of the place. Thank you so much. Over to Belinda again.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. What I hear in Julian's question is 2 things. We have managers who do not have a financial background. And what I hear from your response is that we can train them on the basics of record keeping. And then if we do not have the resources to hire the accountant, because I understand when the business has just started, you may not have so much money to hire an accountant to sit at your business the whole day. They could come part-time, they could come over the weekend, they could come every 2 weeks, or they could come every month, or you can partner with maybe 4 businesses and you share one resource of an accountant to make sure they can be able to handle all your records. Great. So we have about 6 minutes to go. Enterprise Uganda is going to share this presentation on our YouTube channel. So everyone who is asking for the presentation, it's going to be shared on the Enterprise Uganda YouTube channel. So all you have to do is to go to YouTube, or it's going to be uploaded. It's a better way of saying it. It's going to be uploaded on the Enterprise Uganda YouTube channel. So everybody who has missed it, or everybody who wants to watch it again, you will be able to have it archived there. And then we'll also be sharing a link for business health checks. If you would like someone from Enterprise Uganda to come and check the health of your business, including the health records, we'll be able to come and visit you. Yes, the channel link has been shared in the chat, so please watch out for that. Thank you all for your comments. We have very good feedback and engagement in the comment section. Someone has accounting software, and if you are looking for software, do get in touch with Musime Moses. Record keeping is paramount, because even financial institutions need your records for financial assistance. That is Danish Lopui. We have Mr. Emaasit. You are going to give us your number, and people are asking if it is okay to consult you. Please help us type your number in the chat, because you have created a lot of interest here. People may have to come and consult you after the end of this session. Bernard Waswa records now have a big value. Data analytics, yes. When we keep records, we're able to analyze and make decisions for our businesses. Elizabeth Nantume, you're saying you're an accountant, but you're not practicing, and you're asking if it's okay to consult once in a while. Mr. Emaasit is going to give us his number. Elemiga Francis, you said you made a lot of mistakes before in your system until you chose a specific person to handle your records, and now there's a great improvement. Congratulations on that, and do please keep it up. Mujuni Francis, okay, you want to receive the presentation, but I also saw your hand up. Let me see if we have time to take your question. We have about 4 minutes. Mujuni, is your hand still raised? Okay, no, he's not. His hand is not raised. Let me see. So,
Belinda, I have a question, I think, from one of the people we're talking about IFRIS, the kind of reports from IFRIS.
Yes, so I wanted to, before we get to the IFRIS question, Emmanuel, and it is going to be, because it's a contentious issue, I didn't want it to overcrowd the practice of record keeping, because it has come out as a challenge that I wanted us to address at the very end. Okay, so yes, we want to address the IFRIS question, but before we respond to it, I want you to tell us what people are not doing right to be able to manage the IFRIS system. Okay, because it is when I study the IFRIS system, I think it is a fundamental challenge in record keeping that our entrepreneurs are missing. So I want you to start from there. What are we not getting right that is causing us to have challenges with IFRIS? That's how I want us to approach that question. Emmanuel.
Okay. So I would like to give a disclose that I'm not an expert in IFRIS, but the basics I also know, like most of you, is this is actually a device the tax collector desires every trader to have, so that transactions are recorded on time. And because that is done, they should be able to pick their sales tax immediately as soon as the transaction is done. That's why I gave an example of Rwanda when I was in Kigali, a place we went to have lunch. You have to pay, and then it's typed in the receipt, and it goes. Even the special hire guy you used, we also had it. It means everybody positively supported the use. For you as an individual, certainly, it helps you at the end of the day, instead of, because what I know, most restaurants, of course, you issue that receipt, but others don't even issue receipts. They just come and take your order verbally, you eat, pay, and walk. So you will not even have a record of how many clients came today, how much you collected. it gives you a discipline of receipting all your transactions. So I thought that basically, if you have the device and you subject all your transactions to go through that device, in the back end, that is a record for you to file. For me, that's the way I look at it. Of course, there are a number of reasons why people don't want to adapt it. Some of them really want to dodge taxes, because once you have paid for a transaction, the tax component in it will have to be deducted by the taxman. And then the way it came, where you are supposed to buy the device, I think His Excellency the President also had a concern on that. I mean, if you want me to pay taxes, why should you even subject me to pay for that device? Why don't you give me that device for free? Because as I use it, it helps. So I think the uproar was on the trouble of procuring that device, the money, and then of course the fine it came with. I can assure you some fines were 10 times higher than probably the capital in that business. And of course, they tried to resist it. But finally, I also thought that the way it was thrown to the people's throat, some of the actors had it as an opportunity to extract or do a ransom on the people. That's why people fought the thing. But if people were being sensitized, I think the thing would have gone without any challenge. I think I want to keep it at that. But it is just a device which helps you organize your reports. There is nothing, that is how I've understood it.
Yeah, it should actually make our record keeping very easy.
Yes, it is automated record. It's an automated record of all your transactions of the day, accumulated to month. So for me, once you have that, you don't have a headache. You don't even need probably somebody to do those recordings. Maybe the other challenge is certainly the internet, the data, and all those kind of things. Again, I see people spending all the time on WhatsApp, Facebook, and all that. Now TikTok has become TikTok. If you can use that data for those things, then you can use it for transmitting those transactions. But I want to end by saying, I also want to go back to Julie's question of where the skills are limited. I wanted also to have advised Julie that there are self-taught courses you can get in either YouTube, or you can train yourself. I know Enterprise Uganda also arranges such trainings, but you can get to Enterprise Uganda, you can train yourself using your data in YouTube. All those trainings are there. There is a lot of online content you can use to sharpen yourself. And generally, this is advice I even give to everybody else, that when we are talking of self-study, you can do it without paying fees, but only logging into. There are a lot of links you can do a lot of study. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. Was that your parting shot, Mr. Emaasit?
Yes. My parting shot is also to thank you again, and all the people who have sacrificed their time to listen to me. I don't want to take it for granted. I can only say, may God bless you. May God bless your businesses. May you prosper. And Enterprise Uganda, thank you so much for carrying your responsibility efficiently and very professionally. Again, I don't want to take that for granted as well. So I want to end by thanking all of you, wish you God's blessings and a very blessed day. And also we pray that our leaders will support us in running the business, because at the end of the day, these businesses help the community, help the government, and ourselves. Be blessed and bye. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Emaasit. I would like to thank you as well for being here with us. Thank you so much for all the engagements in the chat. I see colleagues that are offering to give us more skills. People have software, people have insurance solutions, and there's been a lot of sharing going on today. Insurance, Mr. Emmanuel Safari is saying that you can reduce your insurance premiums Do you know you can insure your business? Yes, please do insure your businesses. Yeah, but
Yes.
record keeping is critical for us. For every aspect of our lives. I mean, when we are born in hospital, the first thing that is done when we are born is for a record to be kept of our existence, our health, you know, how old we are, whether we are male or female. So this is something that we need to adopt for our businesses, make sure that our businesses are secure, to make sure that we correct our errors, and to be able to acquire the skills that we require to be able to manage our records so that we can have a peace of mind while we are solving the needs in our communities and also making profit. I'm getting very rich. Mr. Emmanuel has shared his contact. It's in the chat. Please do take down the contacts before the call closes. There is a session tomorrow. It's a startup growth masterclass, and the title is Crafting the Perfect Pitch to Securing Funding and Scaling Your Business. Yes, so the poster is posted in the chat. The details are there for you. If you have young people who are thinking about doing business, this will be a very great session for them to attend. It is free of charge. Do share those details. And also, if you can also register. Yes, the link has been put in the chat. I would like to bring this call to an end. And thank you so much for spending your Thursday morning with us. Enterprise Uganda, this is the Business Recovery Series. We meet here every Thursday at 9 to discuss how we can improve our business. Mr. Emmanuel Emaasit and everyone at Vantage Management Consult, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your skill, and your time with us. Until next Thursday, I wish you a great rest of the week. And yeah, happy July. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.